Alright, welcome back everyone. 欢迎大家回来。今天是第531天 This is day 531. Alright, so this is our first day in the new cycle routine. So yesterday we had our Wanikani level 60 stream. So that marks the end of our continuous recording stream session. So we're getting close to July, which now is time to, now this coming month is a time to catch up on all our vocabulary review stack, while juggling any persona projects. So I might not be able to completely crush into all of this 2,893 things by the end of July, but we're gonna chip away at it. This is barring that I don't meet some fantastic people to have conversations about and segue into a long 3-hour internal dialogue with myself for posterity. I want to provide a bit of a disclaimer. If someone is curious if these internal monologues or dialogue with myself happen when I'm not recording, like if this is what I do because I'm streaming or something, no, it happens. I simply don't say it out loud. I think about it within myself. So one thing that streaming has been really useful for is to encourage myself to vocalize. So then, because I'm vocalizing and recording, one of the aspects is to try to organize my attempt to consistently trying to organize all of the information, the monologues, the ideas, and record them and present them. So it's keeping me accountable for organizing these. Now, it's not that I don't do them off stream. The idea is I'm practicing this to show that despite constantly having manic thoughts about, oh, if I did this, it's going to lead into this. If I do this, oh, what happens if I make this mistake? It could be this mistake, it could be that mistake. It can make someone catatonic. Like you could sit there in the corner, like in your fetal position, having a spiral of thoughts that take over. Now, what I'm demonstrating is last 10 or so years, how I manage it is by doing these things. Now with an incentive of being able to speak at length without any interrupting ideas. So, not that my ideas didn't consistently flow when I was younger. There were more things going on in my head than I could possibly articulate in speech and in writing and whatnot. Getting older with more experiences, finding certain things that I developed to cope and certain things that I developed to fuel projects and whatnot. I think in the era of hyperstimulation, it can go a long way to demonstrating that with practice, it like in my opinion, it's manageable. And I'm not coming from it from the perspective that I even know if I have some sort of manic disorder or something like that. I buck at that trend, honestly. I prefer to see what you can do with it, right? You have your observational skills, whether it has a name or a categorization. The idea is you can use your empirical skills, develop routines and hobbies, and like habits. Sorry, I didn't mean to say hobbies. Habits that can leverage these things. Imposter syndrome, I got it in the bag. What does a person with imposter syndrome actually look like? Well, you certainly know one that doesn't have control over it or have coping situations with it, right? What does an introvert, like for example, introversion, right? Categorization. What does an introvert look like? Well, I certainly am an introvert. There's no stretch of the imagination that wouldn't fulfill the criteria for introvert. Now, whether I look miserable or incredibly exhausted or unsustainable in interacting with a lot of people, that I'll leave other people to imagination. Does it look like I'm struggling to sustain myself in interacting with other people when I choose to meet and talk with other people? Probably not. I would say comfortably and fairly conservatively that I don't give the people an impression that I basically experience most of the things that people keep telling me about introversion. I experience it on a daily basis. This very moment, I'm experiencing many of those things. The idea is that it's also channeled and coped with many other very deliberate habits, be it my hand gestures, my vocalization of very specific, very well rehearsed and consistently managed dialogue with myself at this very moment, with no one typing, no one saying anything, and I'm still comfortably speaking to myself in that way, in a way that matches my perspective. That is part of the routine. So, probably not the secret hack that a lot of people are hoping for or even think is a hack. Hours, hundreds, thousands of hours living with yourself and doing something with it. So, in my opinion, the testament to improving yourself and learning things requires the commitment, the acuity, and even the self-ambition, right? Self-motivation to do so. So speaking, very, very novice speaker when I was younger. Like, I think I would be considered very much below average when it came to the ability to interact with people and speak to people at the analogous age of your standard person who comes up to me and say they have ADHD and they're a compulsively introverted person with a dash of imposter syndrome. That came off of quite a bit heavier than I expected. So anyways, thought I'd share a little bit before we get into our lessons. All right, let's get into the three that we curated yesterday. So, 1xi, one, as if, I tell you, this radical kicks my butt, as if. So, is one is as if. And then we're thinking about the soul, so it's, in this case, it's regret. Yep, as if, so, good enough. Xi is a little bit of a twist, because it's to cherish. So you still get regret if it's something you're regretting that you cherish. Maybe the loss of something that you cherish. That is a great pity, right?
万喜
Xi is stronger than one. They both use the same concept though. Because one is as if, and this part, xi, is long ago, and they both are characterized by a feeling. In this case, cherishing, I have the mnemonic of cherishing something long ago, like nostalgia. And then one, as if, this is more a pivot on Walter White. His soul is filled with regrets as if he committed a lot of crimes, right? That's kind of the whole thing. The higher level thing, as opposed to trying to break it down into radicals, which you can break down into more radicals. In this case, I'm using a combination. This is the soul radical, but in a higher order, it means things dealing with feelings, like motivation of like essences and feeling, like essences and spirit, right? So that is also attached to the radical itself. So you can view this as a radical or a combination of characters and radicals. The right hand, I was talking about the characters. These are actually separate characters composed of multiple radicals. So there's radical here, right? There are three radicals in this cluster, and there are 2 radicals in this cluster, but it is also composed of 1 character. And now we're doing 3 layers. So we have the layer of the radical, embedded character, like radicals, combinatory radicals, radicals in characters, embedded characters, hybrid radical characters, and then multi-characters. There are a couple special characters that are composed of 2 separate characters, or separate combinatorial characters. And my mnemonics now have 5 different entry points, right? Those 5 combinations. And most of the time, each character has at least 2 or 3 ways to get into the read and the meaning. The most difficult ones are the ones that require sentences. Basically, they have either 1 radical, which is a character, which is a abnormal read. Those ones are called, I refer to them as foundational characters and radicals, and that's memorization. So memorization recognition forms the foundation, right? When you're at the beginning stages, you need to form a foundation in which you can build on. Their strength comes from how often they appear in others. So like this soul radical, right? It has lots of different connotations when it's combined with a different character set. How frequently occurs is what creates its nuance. And then, like, for example, sun, for example, day on the bottom, that is an embedded character. That is also a radical. And it has many reads. It doesn't even carry a read sound. Its consistent occurrence leads to the formation of the larger group. Day, sun, darkness, even dimness, lightness, brightness, all of the things that deal with light, sun, all of them are embedded in this character because now this character has been used multiple times, or character / radical. So the only way, quote unquote, foundations get stronger is you memorize them in order to use them immediately, because they're foundation. That means that they're going to be pervasively everywhere. And that you can start with memorization recognition. It's very reliable because most foundational things are inherent in everything else. And I talked about this earlier in Boom Pro about the contrast between when you still feel like you're at the beginning stages of learning something. Foundations are absolutely a wonderful place to test your memory and recognition skills, because immediately after that, when you become an intermediate learner or an advanced skill developer, those foundations should be immediately applicable across everything that leads to intermediate and advanced. Otherwise, they're not foundations. So you can determine how foundational something is because it forms the basis of everything else above it. The transition between taking your foundations and constantly now learning with the perspective of an advanced or an intermediate learner, that's where you can tell yourself, it's a litmus test. And I don't know what the details are, right? Everyone feels comfortable at specific times. The litmus test is the moment you start thinking, oh wait, I can just think of this way and this way, and then if I don't think of it this way and this way, I can think of it another way, and if all else fails, I can just default back to memory and recognition. Officially, the litmus test for intermediate learning. The more and more frequent you can bridge into that naturally, like habit forming, like you just do that by default. Welcome to the idea of curating your intermediate learning skills. Now for students, for younger people, the first time they do that is probably when they go to college or get their first job, because they would take all of their foundational knowledge that they decided to keep and memorize and hold on to it long enough through high school. And all the ones that get applied in their job or in their college, they'll keep. All the other things that they memorize and recognize that they didn't use later in college or in profession, they're gone. Your math, If you never engage in a math profession or college, right? And so on. In college, they try to like reinvigorate and cast the net again a little bit to see which one gets on. So that is my concept. That is the narrative concept of advanced learning. When you understand that one day, after memorizing a bunch of things, and you suddenly say, I can't live without these things. They're constantly there. I always see it, and I do it effortlessly. Foundation. You have crossed from foundation, and then the moment you use those foundations to learn something else that's on top, that is when you, in my opinion, one of the higher or more consistent indicators that the person is now an intermediate learner. You have started using your foundations to learn something else. Now, it is context dependent. I'm not saying using English at an intermediate level to learn characters is an intermediate Chinese speaker. That's a different story, right? An intermediate Chinese speaker might not use any English at all in their process. A fluent Chinese speaker might not even think about English at all. That is a different context, right? We're talking about learning here. So when you become an intermediate learner, you take whatever you have learned that is considered as foundation, and that is the stuff that you use to learn more things. That is an integration of no longer memorizing things, but using your existing foundations to develop more knowledge, right? For a language learning perspective, it's like suddenly speaking in Chinese to learn more Chinese. You use the speaking foundations of your Chinese in order to gather more information in Chinese. Intermediate. I'm trying to define these qualifications for myself. So other people might define this differently. For myself, that is what I'm defining. I'm making it very clear that, and you can go in and out. Sometimes there are certain things you have intermediate learning proficiency in, and sometimes you don't. Like maybe you're really good with verbs, and all of the Chinese verb stuff is using an intermediate level of learning. And then suddenly when you're thinking about names and places, it defaults back to memorization recognition. Know that there is granularity and resolution in when and where you're learning intermediate. Learning is not like a blanketed average. It's very situational to the person's individualism. So for me, I am an intermediate learner when it comes to character studies. And character studies is well in the later stages that are enabling me to bridge into something else, which is what we're doing here. We're trying to bridge into vocabulary, and vocabulary is being used to bridge into sentences. And that's the current area we're in. Anyways, just thought I go about updating everything. Today is the first day of establishing a new routine. So it's a little bit early because it's not quite the end of June yet. We still have 3 days. July is technically the time that will really start hammering a new routine. It's not entirely new. The old routine is being infused into the new routine. So a new routine is iterating an older routine with new subroutines. We're not discarding our old routine. We're innovating on top of our existing routine. Wanted to clarify that because I feel like most people, when they hear new routine, it means they're dumping an old routine. Like, oh no, you don't use Wanikani anymore, or you don't use Duolingo anymore, so that means you never have to use those information anymore. I do. I still use that experience. I talk about the Duolingo experience quite a lot, quite often. It's part of the process. So, and it's still part of the process. That's how I remember what I did in Duolingo. In fact, we're about to get to Duolingo soon. Like for Chinese, the way I'm going to construct and web sentences in order to create my own sentences, that is Duolingo's process in reverse. And then we're gonna go back to Duolingo soon because like I said before, I update things. Duolingo had an update on both the Japanese and Chinese front, so I need to update all of my perspectives on the existing Duolingo. I'm not beyond upkeeping, which is the main core of the argument from Boonpro. I'm not beyond updating my perspective on things. When perspectives are out of date, it means you're out of touch. So I don't want to be out of touch, right? If the product never gets updated again, then fair enough. I don't ever cover it again, right? I still keep whatever I learned in the process with me so that I make sure that I don't neglect something. It's the difference between someone coming to me and telling me, oh yeah, this really sucked. It's like, when was the last time you used it? 4 years ago. How long did you use it? 15 minutes. I'm like, 15 minutes and 4 years ago, you're out of date, out of touch, and it's irrelevant. Like, if I wanted to be very objectively cold. In a more subjective, agreeable way, I would politely tell them, well, I'm not entirely sure. Do you know if the thing you did 4 years ago is the same now? And do you know 4 years ago that using the product 15 minutes was sufficient to understand what the product is? And if 15 minutes is sufficient now, 4 years ago, to this date, if you used it for 15 minutes, you would get the same experience because now you're no longer the same person, and also that the product remained the same. Those are the arguments that I would challenge the person to understand and explain to me in order for me to judge or like to, take their advice or to see if they're in touch, right? You can have someone spouting years of things and it would not be reflective of the state of something is now. So Duolingo is still on the table. It took me a while because Wanikani took a year and a half, and HanziHero, like the major part of HanziHero, right, ended last month. We're starting a new routine. Now this is the post HanziHero place. I'm trying to infuse my own routine that's from outside into HanziHero, barring any feature updates, right? That's what we're doing here anyways, using it to serve my purpose. In no way this is prescriptional through whatever HanziHero is doing. What I'm doing is specifically of my own choosing and creation, because that's the application of all the foundations. I'm finding a foundational way to apply my character studies. The stuff that I do appreciate a product like HanziHero has taught me. It encouraged me to look at characters in a specific way, and now I'm applying it in a way that is useful and is foundational to me, that I get to practice each and every day to remind myself of my foundations. So like this, for example. This is a foundational character, Xiao. In no way is not, this whole thing is Xiao. So the bottom does not carry Xiao, the top does not carry Xiao. And if you're looking at the core radicals, it does not provide xiao, as in laugh, right? So this is one of the foundational characters. This is, you either know it or you don't in a very strong manner. This, on the other hand, is do. This character bean is the radical bean, but it's also do. So it carries the sound do. This here is often talking about a method, a way, a route, a road of something. So oftentimes when you're looking for some sort of spot, one of the most consistent thing is to do something, like something, a nature of doing something. In this case, is to tease. It's a little bit abstract because what does being and a way of doing something have to do with tease? That's how I'm structuring it right now, because it's the most reliable way to view the scooter, or I think it's a snail, but a scooter, right? Or the way. So this is do xiao. So do is tease, and xiao. And in a higher order of understanding, instead of do, there's also yo, which is also to entice something. So I could use do and yo because yo and do has the same final and the same tone. They're both in tone 4, and they both locate in the same location, and they are related to xiao in some way, or the act of getting someone's attention. So they may share a secondary character before or after the character that shares this idea. That increases the level of recall that is available. No, there might not be any vocabulary words that are literally what I described. The relationship between the characters is what makes me an intermediate character studier. Like what to illustrate how much I understand about characters. This character represents a lot more than literally what it is. That's what intermediate means. You have a nuanced interpretation of these things now. Not that you look at this and like, if you don't know the character, if you don't know any of these things, that memorize, and that's the only way you can recall it, beginner. You're still working on your foundations. Now, you can keep relying on memorization and recognition way into advanced content. Like the content can far exceed your learning competence. That's like a high school student still pretending like it's high school while they're in graduate school. They can still learn things in graduate school using the techniques and comprehension level of a high school student. You can even reduce the content in a way that is understandable using memory and recognition. So that's what someone who thinks reducing all the complex things into an SRS Anki format is doing. It's still possible to learn that way. Like, hey, how do I write a personal statement? Turn it into an Anki flash, turn it into an Anki deck about concepts you need to write about. Sure, it's still possible. Is it ideal for me personally, or like would I encourage it? Absolutely not. So that's where I would draw the line, because memory and recognition is one of the first steps to learning. First steps. It's part of learning. It's not learning in its entirety, at least from my perspective. So if you're not memorizing and recognizing for the sake of eventually learning the thing, like in its entirety, then it stays at the memory and recognition level with the deficiency in comprehension. Hence, memorizing this and memorizing this whenever they're together, like whenever you see this or this or this, and you're simply trying to recall these things in isolation, that is a lack of comprehension. You're still forming your foundations. So you can still remember advanced things, know advanced things with a lack of comprehension. Be it the lack of experience, the lack of output, right? Or the lack of application, creation, analytics, organization, association, any form of higher level cognition that is beyond memory and recognition. That is beginner level, and even the first step of beginner level. So the idea is to encourage yourself to do that. Go ahead and try to do that as you're going. You can do it immediately if you want. You could wait, right? You can always wait until you've memorized and recognized enough things in order to then take the next step. Everyone has their pace and their choices when they feel they are ready. For myself, you still have to do it. If you don't do it, in my opinion, you can stay a beginner learner and still tackle the most complex things. Like you can remember the definition to the defining variables to dark matter in quantum physics or something and still understand nothing about it or comprehend anything you have said. You can read back to me a Wikipedia description of someone's synopsis of a movie and share with me no comprehension of what it actually means or it means to you or the motivations or whatever you can do with it. You simply recite it, whatever was written. That's what I mean by you can get a lot of knowledge. You can learn a lot of things. You can learn, the word I would use is you can know a lot of things by purely knowing it and then demonstrating at least to me, someone like me, that you understand nothing about it. Like you can say really great things, recall great facts, and have no inclination of its comprehension. And if anyone can relate to this, I'm sure being online long enough, you may have encountered this, where someone would recite a glossary definition of something simply by copying and pasting it and reading it once. It's like, yeah, that will explain it. Like, well, those weren't in your words. You didn't paraphrase it. You didn't like metaphorically demonstrate what you understand about it. You simply recited something that was provided for you. Like, hey, the sky is blue. It's like, oh yeah? Tell me how you think the sky is blue. Like, what do you think about the sky being blue? Why are you telling me the sky is blue? Do you think that I don't think the sky is blue? Right? Comprehension, not recital. The sky is blue is a foundational thing. So, like, you could argue it's a foundational thing. It's like, oh yeah, foundational. What does that mean? That means most people do know that the sky may appear blue. May appear blue. Most of the time. Right? Alright.
逗笑
Amuse.
四子
Okay, so this one's gonna stink. However, it's less. It works a little bit better because 字 usually is like a nondescript unit. Like it's a nondescript unit to add to. It's a thing of the thing that's attached to it. Like it's a thing of the thing, like this one. However, in this case, this is being used as a person in a familial way, like a heritage way. So oftentimes, 孩子 is a bit special. It's a child. So it's not simply a child attached to a thing, like it's a thing that is a child. Some 字 is quite important in this case. So this is helping me remind me that it's an heir. Like a child can be an heir to something. And this character is very special. There isn't one that I'm familiar with that has the left combination. The right combination can be 思 or 词 because it could, there's 词 for word and 思 for like take charge. You'll have to use your imagination on which characters I'm referring to. They use this principal character here on the right.
四子
Alright, those are the ones we added yesterday.
四子
Whoops. I can't type the rest.
万喜
Okay.
逗笑
Alrighty. So we did pass 2 days of active recall, so I'm still gonna cut today's thing a bit short because I want to rest. It's been a really wonderful long week. We basically binged Dave the Diver in the Jungle DLC that led right into the Persona 5 the Phantom X first anniversary, and then immediately into Wanikani's level 60. Then it brings us to today. So hopefully we get some interesting characters to remind us of things, and wait till July. Basically July will start cracking at the vocabulary. Let's see what characters we bring up and maybe what words we discover. It's obvious that it's very obvious I need to come up with a new routine or subroutine for like proper nouns. Proper nouns are wild.
不
All right. Well, that was short-lived. Caught between two places.
练
Heck, this is smelt. It's related to practice. Smelting, forging, refining is related to practice, but they want the word smelt, so it's fine. Even like a lot of times the words that I type, they are typically related to the characters or some part of the character. So like the reason why I keep like one of the routines I have now is like, oh, this is a 30-31, 50-50, or like 50-40-10, 30-30-30 separation. The idea is I'm coming up with shorthand ways of defining what is related and what isn't. And then also in terms of the English, it has become more complex over time, right? To smelt is to practice. They are related to each other. When you are smelting and forging, you are refining and practicing. So like iterating and the essence of practicing. And these characters tend to be related in that way. So that's where I'm getting the like extra meanings and stuff. And I no longer consider them necessarily a problem, because when I see them in the word, they are contextually bound by what they're going to mean. This to me is an indicator of how flexible I can be, how loosened. So immediately when I saw, oh, practice, but wait, it can be smelt, which is smelt, right? Ooh. All right, so immediately I want to say yi, but it could be bamboo shoots. No. That's an armory, right? Heck. So it's probably jian or arrow. Dang it. So the bottom is jian. The tusk is jian and not yi. Okay. Tian is very common. It's one of the it's a suffix and a modifier. So fairly you can rule that out immediately, and then the rest is jian. I was thinking yu for armory, but this is tusk. So it's jian for the most part. It's jian minus the tian. So it's tian with a modifying sound. And then the rest is you have to know them. So the arrow is because it's a material. Bamboo, arrow. Scissors, like a blade, right? Blade, jian, right? Jian. And then when you're cooking something on the burner is to saute something, which is jian. So all of them explains each other with the context of the carrier character, which means in front, but not really in the sense of in front of qian, right? It's all qian. more or less, that's what's going on in my head. Yi is armory, which looks like, well, I'm not gonna write it, but it looks like armory. I keep forgetting that I have my extension in a way that would refresh things. More on that later. Okay.
干剑
Wolf. So I'm gonna go with. There are 50-50s for this too. We're gonna go with Jie.
绝
Yeah. It's like rise stubbornly. Okay, so 50-50. And this part, this right part is Jie, the double mountain with the flag. And one of them, so double mountain with the flag is Qi. However, when it is provided with a radical to the left, it becomes Jie. And the two Jie is, one is to rise suddenly. Where is it? At least I think it is. Or to dig up. It's either dig up or rise suddenly. And that's where my 50-50 is. We're not talking about Jewel. Jewel is clumsy, but it doesn't have a flag. Here it is, to dig. Right, to dig, Jie. Jie is the foundation. And the only difference between it is when you're digging, you're using your fingers. It's an action of your fingers. And then stubborn is describing the person. So the thing about person is it's not really referring to an actual person. Most of the meanings are not talking about a person. It's talking about the aspect of a person. So it can overlap with soul. Soul, the quality of a soul, sort of. Usually the soul, if this was a soul, it would be something like, instead of saying stubborn, it would say something like a emotion dealing with stubbornness per se. When it's the ren is often used for a characteristic of something. So like shocking, startled, prideful, indignant. So stubborn can fit in that. Ren, this is ren, or hito, in form. So it's like the person icon. It's just smashed to the left. That's why it's written this way. So it's describing like immortal. It's describing the characteristic of a person. And mountain, while mountain is shan, right? And xian is very, it's a special read. So xian and shan are very different in terms of the read. So this character itself, the mountain doesn't quite carry any sound. So the mountain is foundational. You have to know the unique characters. However, because this has this character, it has to be some quality, and usually something mountainy, like in a mnemonic way, something of the mountain is quite immortal or of a high status, a high place. That's kind of where we're going with that. Qi is actually the weaker one of the Jie. So this format, Qi is pretty tough for bend. Usually. Anyways. I am not doing this to I want to also say I'm doing this for myself. This is how I remember things. So going over my thoughts in my head over and over again, that's a way to clarify things. Because we have a lot of characters. Tons of characters. Chi can also pivot to ku, like ku right here. Ki, ku, because ku is special too. But it lines up with chi and ku, while preserving the bottom part. So it's a pivot from chi into ku with the character at the top. This thing. And then my mnemonic is to distinguish from this and the character below. Like this is a character embedded with a radical. In fact, these are two characters because this. Oh no, wait. I'm kidding. This is too vanilla. It's not good enough to stand alone. So it would be considered a radical character hybrid. Anyways. So Tusk is a misread. This is dig. Fingers is the dig, not the person. So I have to remind myself of these things. Those are the observations that I'm making. That will create more consistency. Ugh, this is G.
举
So, what type of tree is it? It's not a pomelo. It's not chrysanthemum. It's a tangerine. This is an example of you either know it or you don't situation. The right is G. That's what this combination is. It makes it possible to know it's G, and the left is its categorization, which is a tree, something that grows on a tree. Or a plant thing. And it can vary between fruits and flowers and weeds, or even characteristics of a plant. Now, characteristics of a plant have very specific, like they're limited to specific sounds, in my opinion. So like it could be thorny, for example. Something that is thorny would have a tree in it or a flower in it, like ji, or like a briar or a thorn, right? So you can still have trees that aren't literally things like fruits and objects and whatnot, and you have to get used to those because those are probably foundational. And foundational meaning that that idea will be composed in a lot of words, but not so much in the sense that you can draw conclusions from it using. It has to be memorized in a way. Ooh, spray and guard. It's either Li or T. Okay, so it's a 50-50. The stronger read for guard is Li, in my opinion. For myself right now, but it turns out Li is it's stronger than T, but it's not that strong. The Li is the basis to stand, so that's why I went with Li since I couldn't quite remember. So it's a pivot to T. There is also Li for grain, which is next to has grain next to it, and then water. I already knew the definition is to weep because of the water, but I did not remember the read. Are there any other? Wei is pretty rough. La is fine, surprisingly. So this character is pretty promiscuous. Oh, La is rough. The way you can remember La is La because it's an addition of an exclamation. I think this one's okay for now. T. You can't mistaken. So here's an example where vocabulary is pretty strong because ku chi is one of the foundations. Ku is a foundation for cry. So the other character would be off of a form of crying, which is gonna be
凶
this is actually foundational. It's either you know or you don't. And you don't actually use this more than the like shong is foundational for Japanese. The shong for this, they replace it with something else, like gaga, as opposed to shong. Shong is a little bit more like a wider net, in my opinion. Despite it's like the kind of the reverse in Japanese. They would use this instead of ge. It's interesting. Interesting how that came about. It could also be something of more of like old school versus new school, formality versus casual colloquialism. Like, that's kind of my thought about that. Oh no, all I can think is fun, which is resent. Does that help me? Uh, does it? So we reduce the top right to grass, right? I want to say it's like, I was gonna say hun. Hun? It's probably fun. Okay, for indignant. Okay. So resent is okay because of anger. And fun fun something. That's not the character that they lined it up with. They lined it up with some sort of other anger word. But this is fun. Fun for resentment. It was one of the last characters that we learned. Manikani. Alright. It helps with the indignant though. Good. Oh. Pretty sure that's just fool, not fool. A husband.
夫智
Okay. That's a no or you don't. Leech. So person. Is this a flower? Or are you a pivot? The bottom makes me think of... So it's not that. So it's probably when or meat or fish. This one is one of the pivots, right? It's a tough one because it makes you think of a flower, but it's not. And it's off of when. How you would get when is from the bottom of chariot. When you think of when, to carry, you think of yun. When is tough because you either have meat or fish or you have muddy when. And jun is what's underneath the army. Actually, maybe we should make it about the army. Do I have to make it about the army? Oh, I did make it about army. Let's go look for vocabulary. Vocabulary time. So what do we have? This is meat or fish. Oh no, wait, we did add something meat or fish, didn't we? Chai hun. I think we added chai hun. Or hun chai. Oh no, maybe not. Wait. Hold up. Oh, it's a different one. Tai yao. Because that is vegetable and meat too. Because that's a meat dish. This is meat and fish. Oh, dang. So, hun cai. We can put hun cai. Non-vegetarian dish. So, it's a meat. Wait. Meat or fish. Hun cai. That's a weird way to say it. I kind of get it. Cai being the dish. Like, more used as a dish. Hun xing. Meat and fish. Hun xing. Xing is... Really? Xing for fishy? Yeah, okay. Whoops. Uh, Wenhua, obscene speech. That's a different pivot for that. Very pungent. Xing, oh, spicy vegetable. It seems like this has more of a vegetable. Why is this dealing with more vegetable despite meat or fish? This does include meat, fish, yeah, so non-vegetarian. Quinyo, animal fat. I guess meat or fish, sure. Quinxing, meat and fish. This is interesting. Quinsu. Su being like the essence of meat and su. Oh no, su is a vegetarian or vegetable. Interesting. Su is pretty weak. We could put in su, meat and vegetable. That's actually probably a great way to practice su. We'll do that. That's definitely a weak one. Su. I think of something else. I think of elements. Elements instead, like elementary. I think this might actually be a pivot from long. It's not long. Something makes me want to type tongue. Why? It's not a long. I can't seem to figure out what it is. Oh, pung for the huge. Okay. We're gonna probably need. Oh man, pung da is good enough though. And then Liam Peng. Liam Peng is weird. Liam Peng is really. So Long is the basis of this character. However, Peng is an exception. Peng is literally one of three exceptions. So we have C for raid. The clothing. Oh, and raid has this part and the uniform. Uniform to raid. Chong is a giveaway because it's early. And then everything else is long outside of Peng. So the shack. We just gotta. I can't. Where am I gonna get the Peng from? Thought it was Chung. We'll come back to it. I think the vocabulary is pretty strong. The shack is
Peng.
big.
Fang.
Like seemingly. We have something added for this. We combined the two seemingly. Fang Fu, right? Double seemingly. They're really weak. More so grammar related. I feel Fang Fu.
Fen.
Then we can.
细
Okay.
踏
Step on is a bit weird.
号
Number. It can be a mark as well. It's a type of mark. That's why I wrote mark. My gut was telling me gu, but another part tells me there's a chance it's gua. Heck. It's who. Oh, right. This is either you know it or you don't. So let's go see if we can find a fox. Yeah, it's kitsune. Kitsune. um, a lemur, fool, hole, fox, and monkey put together. What about fox? Huli, huli. Oh, like a foxy type of person too. Fool, fool. Oh, bat, fox, bat. Oh, interesting. Flying fox. Ooh, ye. Sly. Oh, foxy doubt, to doubt or suspect. Interesting. Ooh, mong. Mong is weasel, or is it mongoose? Mongoose and fox put together for a meerkat. Hmm. Oh, who knew? That's interesting. Fox lady, folk stories. Yeah. Um. I kind of like Humang. Let's do Humang. Okay. I'm not that great with mongoose though. What mongoose look like? Let's go look at a mongoose again. Let's look at an image of a mongoose. Okay. I can kind of see where they get the like the fox plus the mongoose situation. The lemur's a bit of a stretch for me. I'm not gonna use lemur.
侧
Weird one. That's a foundation. Ce is a foundation. Actually, ce without the water, like the without the water part is foundation. Oh goodness. Some part of me want to type like Dian or Zhang or oh, it's Dian. Dang it. Wrong. Uh, do we actually have? No, we don't. For pastor. Or it's read here. Let's go see if we can find something that isn't a proper noun. So we did get Mian which is a proper noun. Cai Dian, name. Tao Dian. Oh, Tao Dian might help. Tao Dian might help. Because it's grass and pasture put together, which is a meadow. Not a lawn, though. Interesting. Lawn is a bit smaller than a meadow. Oh no. I can't un... oh no. Yo or you, Yong.
勇
It's like masculine, brave, maybe. Use brave, courageous. Cool. Cool.
湖
Excuse me.
府
Cauldron, not axe. Although axe is another form of it. The top part. The top part is fu and the bottom part changed. Okay. That's a cauldron. Duen, shield. It's a pivot from Shun. The
旧
it can be two things. There are two Jills, and it's underneath. Either the Jills, Jill, they're both sound carrying character, and they're they're sicknesses. It's either spasm, like a jerking thing, convulsion, serious thing, and then scabies. Which one are you? I feel like you're a spasm. Dang it. It's remorse! Oh no. Alright, let's go look. So sickness is an interesting super family. So We have jiu, so this jiu is remorse. So let's think about this. Maybe a long time, long ago. We could use like long ago as a reference. Okay, so long time for the this jiu. There are two other jius. At least I recall. So we also have G, but that's not here. Should be two other jiu. Or is it Jie? Oh no, I think I'm thinking of Jie. Wait. What the spasm? Wait, spasm doesn't have sickness? Oh, no, here it is. I have to load more. Okay. So, Jie is the introduction, the generational thing. So, scabies is this. We also have spasm. Oh, it's Jing. Okay. So, Jie is the scabies. Jing is the spasm. So they're not related in jiu. You do have to memorize. These are foundational. So different types of quote unquote suffering, sickness. All of these are foundational. So like Bing, that's Bing with the sickness. That's actually a unique read. So that one kind of sucks. Tong is Tong with the sickness. Liao, that's Liao with the sickness. Feng is fun with the sickness. So nearly like if you want like sickness is a great way to practice your phonetics in Chinese, because nearly all of them, if you want examples of primary or characteristic reads, like characters that you can read phonetically, is a group like this: sickness, trees, flowers. But sickness is really good. Like this is jiu. That's what it sounds like. So jiu. So you neutral everything. This is jiu. This is chen. This is that's, yeah, that can be good. But it could be chu as well. This is ji, right? Ji da. Can be Chung, but this one is more like Qiang. Qiang is stronger. There are some exceptions, like this Che, Fu. Fu could be stronger there. That's a lie, right? Jiang, Ye, Jing, Zhi, Si. Si can be two. Shuan is pretty wild here. It could be Jun as well. So all of these categorical ones are great ways to build up your read intuition, at least in Chinese. Definitely not in Japanese. Japanese requires like a kunyomi filter. So you have an onyomi and kunyomi filter to contend with.
电
Like most of the time, like this one, I was between Dian and Dian, and I rarely remember what the meaning was at the time. Oh, I want to say it's Han,
汉
and I want to say it's either Vas, writing brush. Could be a writing brush. No. Something to do with water. Interesting. I'm gonna say Vas. Okay. Still Vas. The writing brush. Why do I say writing brush? If you remove the water, it's writing brush. Water is Vas, but writing brush is without the water. So Han is in Han. So double Han. And the way I remember it is because it's hun with water. Water is vast. Hun is not. A writing brush is not. How do I get a writing brush in this? That's kind of a tough one. This is a very tough character to remember. For writing brush. One thing I see that's an error though. So this is an error right here. In this thing. That's not a car. This is not a car. So they made a mistake here. This is mist. It's a mist. A car stroke would run through this. So that's an error, which may or may not be a deal breaker for some people, right? For myself, you just learn it, right? If you know what's wrong with it, then you can remember what's wrong with it. If you're relying on memorization and recognition, then you can't correct for it. That's usually a good... Oh, that's a wonderful litmus test for whether you're memorizing things and recognizing them, or are you understanding them. Because higher level comprehension can correct for them. It's pretty effortless to know that this is not car. And you could sit here being angry about it and say, well, I saw it there, so it's gonna condition me to memorize it and recognize it differently. Like, well, that's what happens when you only memorize and recognize. You can't correct things. You can't adjust things. Right? You don't think about what you're doing. You simply memorize it. So, here's a good example. Like, this could trigger... I would say this triggers a lot of people in today's modern age. Where, like, oh, whoa. Now I can't, like... Now I'm going to get this confused because this says car and that's clearly not car. Oh. Tough. Very tough. Oh no. Is this a dove? What type of bird is this? I'm going to say jiu.
Jiu.
And it's a turtle dove. It's either you know it or not. Actually, I think turtle doves are endangered. I think turtle doves are one of the birds that are actually endangered. I could be wrong. They're either endangered or they're challenged. They're a challenged bird species. Various turtle doves, I believe. Not that that's important, but
盾
just thought I'd mention that. Remote.
风
It's maple, and you either know or you don't. The nice thing about fun is now it's also kaede, right? Kaede is the Japanese for maple as well. Same thing. I mixed this two up. This is gong, yeah, gong. So, how do I mess up chong with gong is because in chong it also has this character, but chong has something on top. Right, here we go. Right, chong has the mobile container on top. That's why I chose chong as opposed to gong, and gong doesn't. So now there's a gong in chong, and gong is over here. And to bow, the mnemonic for poor is to bow, or like when you're poor you bow for like mobile containers or stuff. So bow is pretty good. I mean, it was my second. It was a 50-50 guess on the read. And gong, how do I know it's to bow? A bow is gong. So bow and bow are English homonyms, right? Bow and bow. And then there are homonyms in Chinese as well. So that's kind of how we deflect into gong. I don't... What read do we have? Is it Ji? No. Ji. Okay. So Ji is also bow. Ji Gong. Ji Gong. You could have. I bet if I look this up, there's probably like Qi Gong, maybe. Qi Gong or Fu. Gong Fu, maybe. Gong Qing. Interesting to attend personally. So less actual bowing, more figurative bowing. Oh, here's one. Oh no, that's the same thing. Oh, so conceding. It has more of a conceding. Oh, or bend the body, bow the body. Gong sheng. Interesting. Gong yi. So it's more figurative. It's used more figuratively. More so humbling oneself. Like yielding and taking care of things as opposed to literally bowing, like just bending over and like lowering yourself. So there's less of that.
Sheng.
How do I say this? Like sacrifice, livestock, offering. Okay, yeah, livestock. It's fine. It is involved in livestock is involved in sacrifice. So like when you're eating, there's a lot of you're raising livestock as a sacrifice for your subsistence. So I typically lump those things together. Cauldron. Cauldron is just cauldron. You gotta know.
Wan.
Alright, it's time to guess. I'm gonna say ant. It's not ant. Oh. This is a characteristic. So here's a special case. This is a characteristic of a bug. So it's like wiggle, wriggle, slither around. So something that is characteristic. So there are a couple of these, and one is one of them. Curling up, boring a hole. Those things can be part of the bug because there are bug characteristics. So, how did this work?
Hun.
Oh no, it's meat or fish, not.
Xing.
Xing. Shin. No, xing. For core as well in Japanese. It's a very specific character and it really doesn't get used very often. So both of them kind of reinforce each other, which is kind of nice. The top is the key for the read, and yeah. Oh no, this one's tough, even with the kanji. This is ja,
Za.
za, bind. This one's tough, even with the kanji overlap. I immediately wanted to say like a ling, but I feel like it's more of a tan. But if it's a tan, I don't know what it is. Tan. This like cowboy sunflower thing is a pain in my butt. Shin for gill fungus. Dang it. Yeah, gill fungus is hard. Lee, so the Lee comes from the overlap with Cowboy. There are a couple ones that are pretty rough. The sunflower one is, so Tan is the strongest. So I had to rule out Tang. So if it was Tang, I have no idea what it is. And then the next thing is Lee, which is chestnut. right? That's where the flower thing came from, but it's actually tree. And others are not as prospective. So it was either Tang or Li, since I can't find Shun. And Shun is unlike anything. That's kind of a tough one. You either know or you don't here. We can look for a vocabulary word. So both tons contain this combination. I don't think are any other characters I'm familiar. And then let's go look for. Let's see if we can find a fun word. So what is it? Gill fungus? Maybe 卷, like 寒卷. 香炫 for shiitake. Shiitake. No, shiitake. Shiitake or 毒香. Oh, interesting. Old stool. Oh, gu shen could be helpful. It's a type of fungus. I was thinking juan for fungus. But gu is mushroom. So gu shen and mushrooms are fungus. Right? They're fungi. Xiang shen shiitake shiitake is pretty good. I kind of like it. Why did they use fragrant? I'm not sure. It's not transliteration. It doesn't sound like shiitake. Or I go with gu chen, which is pretty solid. You know what? Let's go with it. I really like, as the Americans say, shiitake mushrooms. Like, shiitake mushrooms are fantastic. But I didn't realize that she had two E's in it, like she, right? Shiitake. Actually, I'm kind of curious what the pitch accent is. Maybe is shiitake. No, shiitake sounds usually written. No, it's funny. It's usually written kana, but it lines up with Japanese. Okay. All right. Okay.
明
is it dark, dim, hazy, dark, dim, close eyes. Closed eyes. Yeah. Immediately I want to type G.
记
Yikes. Something about putting missiles on a car so that you can fasten it. Okay, like fastening missiles onto a car with silk. There is a vocabulary word that I'm thinking of for fasten. Oh, it could take a bind and tie, like maybe like 季节 or 季节 or 季节. Oh, it could also be untie. Whoops. Find out. 系带. That's a read change. It's a secondary read. 机上 buckle up. Kind of tough. T-ball. Wow, I wasn't expecting to more. Tomar. T-ball. What is that? Fasten and then more, like to like tie the boat. 联系. Oh man, C is a C. It looks like C is a more common read on this. Where is the C coming from? I kind of want to see this. So the G that I'm getting is G from edit, which really isn't that great. Really not that close. Where's the C coming from? Interesting. The closest thing I can think about for C is the silk, but that doesn't do. Both G and C are pretty uncommon for like combination of the stuff. Oh, that's a tough one. C 球. It's pretty good. All the C's are pretty alright. C Fang attack. Alright. I guess we're gonna use Umar. E-ball. We're not going into separate reads yet. Separate reads will come with a different routine. Heck. This one, it's Schwa. I screwed up. Although Swan is one of the read. But this is Swall. And Swall lines up with Swall, the other Swall, and that is to incite. This one is the shuttle. Let's go here. There's two Swalls. Like, we might as well right Swall here. There's instigate, Swall, mouth, and shuttle. It's a bit of a pivot, right? There's also two other homonyms, but those are unrelated. This is Swall for the right hand of this, and then Swall the other Swall. So all the right hand stuff carries Swall multiple times. Or Swall, just Swall. The tone can change. That one's okay. Okay.
训 裸
So it's not gauze, it's dang it. Oh, it's a bamboo basket. Bamboo basket. So two things. It could be a yi for escape. Or it could be a that's bristle, right? Or is it oh no, it's a Tuan for leap up. The other one is Tuan. And what am I getting? The mouse, right? The mouse in the so this mouse, yin or yi, yin. Okay, yin has that. Tuan was what I was looking for. Or flee. But yin or yi, flee is what I was going off of. And yi, I typed yi because it's to escape. by the definition, not the read, because I couldn't find the read. So Chuan, let's go see if Chuan Yi is a word. There's a very good chance it's either that or Tao. Chuan Shang. Interesting. Oh, no. We're not talking about that one. We're talking about to leap up. Sorry, to leap up. Wrong. The other Chuan Yi would be a possibility, or Chuan Tao. This one is to leap up, so it's gonna be like Jue and Sheng, right? Sheng is to rise. So to suddenly, it's more like sudden leaps up, right? This is pretty good. Sheng is very reliable. Bang is a leap as well, like hop. So that's pretty strong. Both of these are pretty strong. Chuan Tang to like prance or very vigorously, so to jump around wildly. That's okay. That's okay. That's describing something. Chuan Hong. Okay. I guess that like something red or like spicy or hot, sort of. Chuan Huo. That is a leaping, highly demanding product, right? A highly demanding product, so hot property. I'm sorry. Chuan Tiao. That's still jumping. So in this case, it's more like a forward leap. So to bound forward. Chuan Xi, ooh, very leap up because leap up because of diarrhea. all right. I think we're gonna use. I think Bang is pretty good. Bang is useful because Bang is a weak character. Like Bang, this Bang. We can use two weak characters to make a strong meaning, possibly.
Chuan Gong.
Oh, dang it. It's P. Or P. This has no help. It's in utterance and a proper noun. So it's probably just going to be onomatopoeia or some wow. Okay. Pitter patter. Oh, interesting. Pitter patter is pretty cute. Crackle and rattle. And then it's a variant of something else. Nah, we're just gonna move along here. Pretty sure this is bamboo basket. Oh, more. I'm thinking Japanese. I wrote ma because of Japanese.
Suo. Mo.
Ma is Japanese. Like maho or majo. Mahozukai. Like magic, witches, sorcery, things.
Li.
Oh, what type of fish are you? I want to say carp. Oh, no, wait. It could be scale. Like being scaly. No, that's Lee, right? Or is that scaly here? It's got carp. Okay. Excuse me. Gao for withered. Oh no. Wither is kind of weak, but it's lined up with the other wither. This is a good example of your pivot of taking a read and then attaching it to a characteristic of a category. So what did we have today? Wriggle or slither around. That's characteristic of insects. And then this one is withering, which is the characteristic of tree, which does line up with ku gao. Ku is good, is used in the same way. It's ku attached to a tree, so they're both wither. There's another wither actually, wei, which is way attached to a tree. So all three of them is the sound that they make attached to a tree. So they all mean wither. I don't think, let's find out. Does Gao line up with Wei? No, it's just Ku Gao. Alright. Oh, haggard. Yeah, something that's withered is also haggard of a person. Yeah. Although people can wither, sort of. I want to say Xian. Oh no, that's probably Lian. Yep, Lian, honest or cheap. Cheap is gonna be added here because it's more like a honest price, so cheap.
批稿
I want to say it was Liang, but Liang sounds
Liang.
stronger. It's like loud and clear. Spoken. Bright speech. Clear, right? Bright also means clear. And then in speech, it's more like you heard it loud and clear situation. It's a pretty good one. I like it.
脸
Lian, not so much, but we'll go for it. Alright, pretty sweet. Absolutely love doing these character studies now. It's like tickling my fancy because I can speak about it. That's what it feels like for Wanikani whenever lesson days comes around. I can talk about the characters as opposed to reading and trying to memorize something. We talk about the characters the whole time. So that is like my basic activity now. It's really fun especially when we start talking about names, people's names, like, oh, that's a really cool name, or this place has a really cool name. Here are the essences. Now, I do want to make a really big disclaimer. The essences of the character might not necessarily reflect the native meaning, because now most of this stuff is interpretive, right? So like a radical could mean something dramatically different. Later, maybe like in another couple months or so, we could look at the original radical names, like what is the native Chinese radicals and the native Japanese radical names, like meanings. Are they one and the same? Like, look in the book. That would be really cool. It can add to the understanding of the characters, and it's not that strong. It's not that tough of a pivot for me. I'm in my sweet spot now, where I'm no longer memorizing and recognizing. It is remarkable. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. I'm not gonna go through active recall today. I'm gonna try to rest up for tomorrow. We can put some time in between the things. What I do have to say that's really remarkable about other people online is how strongly they rely on memorization and recognition. Like, since the dawn of the internet, so much of the ease of information, like how saturated information is, and even redundant now because of AI slop and whatnot, how redundant it is, how complacent and, to me, unrewarding the way people think they're learning. Like, for me personally, like, I'm not saying you guys or whoever is memorizing don't feel rewarded when you memorize and recall something. For me, I can no longer see how to connect with people who either the only kick they get out of is being right or wrong, not discussing what is considered right, what is considered wrong, why and how do they not agree with each other, and how they are in agreement with each other. Like, a right answer is nearly, like, most things in human creation, the construct is not literally always right and wrong. Like, it's rarely ever zeros and ones. The internet has changed that game. Now it's zeros and ones. Even opinions are zero and ones. Like, oh, well, your opinion is wrong. My opinion is right. More people back me than you. So, like, even with the difference of one vote, makes it feel like one is right, one is wrong. So, what does that have to do with how I'm impressed with the inundation and saturation of information? It's crazy to me to think that the default way people learn, quote unquote, what they think they're learning is by doing the thing so much that they memorized it. Like, how do you learn how to do math? Watch like hundreds of podcasts about the same concept of math and hope it sticks, right? Like, that is the conditioned default of the internet. The moment you type something in a search engine, the most practiced skill, I'm not saying it's not your best skill. Someone who relies on the algorithm, relies on their search engine, their most practiced skill is to see the information over and over again until it sticks. Right? If you're wondering, nah, Maku, you're barking up a tree. It's like the most touted way to learn a language is immersion. And no, it's not all types of immersion. It's a very specific type of immersion. The very specific type of immersion that is most popular is vibe and get inundated with the same stimuli until it suddenly clicks one day. That is the most popular type of immersion. We're not talking about, like, if someone says, no, that's not the type of immersion I do. The type of immersion I do is I go to Japan, I force myself to learn things that I pick out because I'm in an environment. That's a different type of immersion for sure. Like, that's, we then start talking about, like, the concept of comprehensible input and how to measure one's own competence. That's not part of comprehensible input. Learning how to measure one's own competence. That's where I like to contribute my 2 cents. Comprehensible input does not, that whole concept doesn't teach you or focus on the idea of how to measure your own competence. You have to assume you already can do that before you go about making that concept into all of your stuff. Like, if you're an incompetent person or you're an overconfident person, thinking that you're having comprehensible input, like achieving comprehensible input, is not a thing, in my opinion. Like, there are prerequisites for applying a concept. You must know its axioms, or right, the axia or axioms, before you can use that technique properly, or the, not really technique, it's a concept, right? It's a theoretical concept. And the immersion that I get from people is like, oh, you just got to keep reading, you just got to keep exposing yourself. It's like, I'm going to be very, very clear about this. There are enough cases in this world where you could even spend your entire lifetime, and I'm not even cherry picking, it actually happens significantly. Now, not significant enough to be the majority, I get that. There are varying degrees too, so we require a threshold. You can be a native speaker and still suck at the thing that you're required to be examined on. Take an SAT. Go ahead. Tell me how you score right now. Like, if you're not actively learning, right? Whether it's through immersion, whether through his application, or however, whatever the methodology you're doing, if you're not actively learning, go take a standardized exam right now. Tell me how you do, how well you do. Like, you can spend a whole lifetime thinking you're competent in something by immersing in it, by being repeatedly bombarded by something, and I can ask you, please explain that to me, and you would not know what it is. Like, explain to me how your smartphone works. Like, you could use it and you can explain something. Oh, well, you just touch this and touch that. It's like you didn't understand anything about how smartphones work. You know how to operate something through habit formation, right? So online, the algorithm has solved that problem. Now, what I'm saying is I am very impressed. I'm incredibly impressed that people choose to harness that part that they do well. Or, now here's the cynicism part. Cynical alert. Or is it that the environment has induced people to do that so people can profit off of them? Now, I'm not saying people like HanziHero and Wanikani. What I'm saying is there was a precedence that there was an unintentional consequence of algorithm efficiency, right? All of those tools, they become business oriented as well and motivated. So that innovation created a precedence that people prefer to use repeated exposure, mere exposure, inundation, to easily accessible information without any form of critical thinking or problem solving skills to efficiently acquire a memory by simply maintaining it through consistent exposure. That has become the gold standard now. Now, then fast forward a couple years, and then how do people teach people who do that really well? SRS. SRS is very popular because it now takes advantage of studying people. So now you might argue, so what happened first, chicken or the egg? Did I, for example, learn by seeing the same thing over and over again? The vast majority of my life after like 18 years of age was no. It's absolutely not the way I learn. The vast majority of my advanced knowledge does not come from repeated exposures of the same thing. In fact, the bane, the trade-off that I talked about 3 days ago about boredom, being bored, complacent, grinding, lack of motivation, and cheap rewards not being sustainable for motivation is the consequence of predominantly relying solely on memorization and recognition as your perceived learning ability. That means you have memorization recognition does not give you reason for application. It does not give you reason for analytical skills. It does not give you reward from creation. You don't encourage yourself to apply something, to want to use it, to want to see it, to be curious about it, to use it, to create something out of it, to overlap memories, to associate all of the downstream things don't even happen anymore. Because there is an excess of information that demands your attention, and it is so excessive and so, in my argument, ironically, it is so inefficient to rely on memory and recognition that it is like sometimes it goes unnoticed. Like when I ask someone, so how long do you spend studying? It's like, well, I spend studying for 30 minutes each day. And then fast forward 6 months. How long do you spend studying? Oh, I spent 6 hours. And I'm like, what happened? Why did it go from 30 minutes to 6 hours? Didn't you learn more things? Did you scale up? Like, did you comprehend things so that it doesn't like scale up like crazy? It stayed 1-to-1. Just like doom scrolling. Like YouTube videos. Playing video games, schoolwork, it simply scaled up 1-to-1. Like if you learned 100 kanji, it's 100 kanji. When you get to 2000 kanji, it's still the same scaling. Now it's 20 times the length of 100 because you have 20 times the volume. And then someone would say, well, I know most of the stuff, right? So then they will only focus on the last 200 kanji. Then they forget the 1800 other kanji unless they're repeatedly slamming them into the head. So then you go around and you hope that they intuitively, when you read manga, you start developing comprehension skills. It's like, yeah, of course you do. You start attaching them to stories. You start caring about the stories. You hope to use, apply, and output. This is where I have a I am very contentious on this point. When someone's reading manga and they are applying the things that they are memorizing, that is output. It's not input. It's not entirely input. Like it's almost 80% output. It's 80-20. You are finally outputting something that you memorized. To create new input from that. And then CI is usually applied in a way that you comprehend a threshold, like 80% of the stuff you comprehend, and you learn new input 20% from what you barely comprehend. So you take what you comprehend and you learn the new input. While you're doing that 80%, that is output. That is deduction, application, association, comprehension. You are outputting something because now you memorize and you're creating comprehension of it and an application of its use in context of something you don't know or don't understand. So after you memorize and recognize something, the vast majority of your time is with output. Output is the end process that creates the full length of learning, right? So when someone says, oh yeah, I don't have time to read manga, or I don't have time to listen to podcasts because I'm still focusing primarily on trying to memorize something and it's scaling to the point where I don't have enough time to do higher level processing, that is what impresses me. Because there are people who legitimately do this so well that it makes me exhausted. Like the stuff I'm talking about now, the associations and correlations that I observe between the behavioral responses of the internet, the hustle culture, and what the algorithm is doing to the lack of problem solving and critical thinking skills and higher level cognitive function when it comes to learning and comprehension, that is a walk in the park to me. That is scalable to me personally. Like you can scale that. It condenses so many higher level, it compresses the volume. It helps you scale the volume. Meanwhile, the hot take and the hacks that I hear is the lowest level you can possibly do, and you hope that you just do it even more. Like do it faster, do it more, inundate even more. Yeah, no kidding, you keep looking for efficiency because in order for that thing to work, you're constantly reducing your attention span as much as possible so that you can squeeze in every ounce of repeatable exposure you can have. Now, yes, that leads to better memory, quote unquote, the perception of more volume for your time for memory. Does it lead to better comprehension? From my perspective, absolutely no. It's not even a close contest. Someone who don't think about the things, who don't want to encourage themselves to think about the things they're trying to memorize and trying to recognize, organize it, compare it, apply it, and create something out of it, even at the top level. You don't even have to go to creation. Organizing and applying it is sufficient. Don't do any of that, then you have zero comprehension. Memorizing information is not the same as comprehending it. It's part of the process. It's part of the picture. And because that part is the first step, and it's also made so easy, so readily available, so attractive, so comforting when you're online, that rarely now I see people after 2 or 3 years of on and off studying rarely graduate or like matriculate out of that comfort zone. So, did the internet deliberately do a disservice to people's complicated, to simplifying people's way of learning? Yes, but not intentionally. I don't think there was anyone out there that said, oh, hey, let's go find the best business practice we can have by focusing and abusing people's attention spans. The very first step of people's fundamental attention spans and catching their attention as much as possible to reduce and refine that to a point where that is all the time they have in their life for these things. Doom scrolling, 30-second repeat of the same iteration of AI slop that becomes a subconscious mechanical movement that isn't even part of conscious thought anymore, right? Things like that. It's so refined now that it's kind of tough to even encourage people, which is what I was talking about in Boom Pro, encourage people to know that there's really wonderful things you can do. Like, you can do so much more and enjoy quite a lot more of things. Things are changing now, right? There is pushback, right? Pushback for algorithm-based things, targeted research, targeted inundation, habitual, mandatory, default versus opt-in, right? Agency and all that stuff. The landscape is progressively changing right now. How rapidly it will happen, who knows? I do know that, with that said, people who design apps, people who are teaching things, they're taking advantage of it too. It's not that they are supporting the hyper reduction of people's attention spans, completely simplifying the nature of learning to mere exposure. Psychology is mere exposure. The more you see it, the more likely you'll remember it, and you hope that creates an intuitive comprehension emergence. Well, that used to be true, in my opinion. Well before a targeted algorithm was so efficient that it sucks all of your time up, or a SRS that is built on that principle that's so efficient at sucking all your time up that it would give you time, would even leave some speck of time for you to create upper comprehension skills through intuition and vibing. That used to be a thing maybe 10 years ago, not now. Like the hyperstimulation and then people stacking on top of it to take advantage of it out of the goodness of their heart. Like, these SRS are really good at competing with something else that is taking up all your time, right? If doom scrolling is taking up all your time, Duolingo is there to compete with the doom scrolling in order to replace it with a habit that is also responsible for using that same thing. In my opinion, every single SRS uses the same principle. Space it out, minimize the amount of stimulation, right, necessary to achieve the highest volume based on the lowest effort input and the complete lack of critical thinking skills and problem solving skills. So yes, it will make it more difficult to reach an intermediate level of learning. But the biggest but is it is so good at getting people started. Like, so good that is undeniable that more people, because of these techniques and stuff, right, farming the beginner phase, so good at getting people to learn language that I would imagine there's a statistical increase in interest in language learning, and a very noticeable statistical increase. I don't have any data, but I would say it's conservatively acceptable that there is a surge in beginner language learning. Now it's going to take humans, right? It's going to take humans to collectively figure out, so how do we get from hyper overstimulated, low effort, ease of transition, memory based, recognition based, mere exposure based techniques to an intermediate level, bridge that level smoothly? Is it going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? I don't know yet. I can tell you now, this is like addiction level of harnessing doom scrolling. Like the data that you see, the fundamentals of catching someone's attention and making consistent has been harnessed now. It is so good at what it's doing, it is also creating a crutch. Humans are humans. The human condition is when you are used to doing something and everything else looks and smells like SRS, and you drink SRS, you eat SRS, you sleep SRS, and you even learn a language like SRS, it is probably SRS for the rest of your life. Now, how do you get out of it? In a human condition, complacency is reinforced by how many sources of interaction based on the thing that you rely on. If everything smells, drinks, tastes like SRS, then it will become very, very difficult to depart outside of SRS, right? You're not getting a balanced diet for your brain. You're getting a enriched, cultivated, conditioned response through mere exposure. It's cheap, efficient, good for business, and good for the human condition. Humans are lazy. They don't want to work hard. They want big return on low effort. And things that are incredibly efficient and lazy creates complacency and lack of innovation or iteration, right? That's not a good or a bad thing. Humans are built to be conservative. They conserve their energy. They know when to take opportunities. Like, obviously, I want to spend $1 for $10,000 worth of something. Like, if I gave you $1 and if someone asked me, like, hey, they'll give me $1,000 if I gave them $1, I'll absolutely do it. It's lazy, easy money, right? $1 for $1,000. That's fantastic, right? So, human condition exists on everyone's level. Now the question is, how long is it until there are human beings who ends up largely experiencing only that, right? They are so inundated with one task that they no longer have curiosity, willingness, or emotional, like any form of curiosity or motivation to entertain the rewards and the efforts of other things. I don't know, but honestly, the really scary dystopian side of me, if I wanted to do some fear-mongering a little bit, is that the way people are learning is also going in the same way of doom scrolling. Like, in order for other alternative educational methodology to compete with the fundamentals, because it's beginner friendly, fundamental learning strategies are also very effective for beginner learners who also likely will be a beginner learner when they are beginning to learn another skill. So all of this culminates in the idea that when you start with an app, one of the most responsible things, in my opinion, for an app designer is to encourage people to move on, integrate, expand, and supplement. I give you an example. It's not the greatest, but in Wanikani, when you become level 60 or when you become level 25, usually you get a newsletter, right? And they tell you, hey, as much as we want you to continue doing this and being subscribed to this and whatnot, you have to leave the nest sometime. We got to encourage you to go and do something else, because the efficacy of a beginner program that also use beginner type accessible functionality is, in fact, that's what it is. You have to work really hard to get someone interested at first to establish a habit. The double edge is when the habit is established, how are you going to learn how to couple the habit to something else? That bridges and reduces the resistance to develop a new habit. Do wanikani, and because you've done wanikani, you can do something else, and that habit is attached. Or you do that new thing and then do wanikani because you are habitually going to have to complete your HanziHero review. So add the thing in front so that in order to get that same feeling of satisfaction in completing your day, it comes as a quote-unquote reward for the tougher task that you have to do, which is to couple the habit. This is habit coupling. You couple established habit that provides sustainable reward, hopefully, and you attach it to something you're trying to establish, right? That is one way to bridge. Now, most of these apps are not responsible for that. In fact, it would be really cool to see like Wanikani collaborate with a downstream thing, like Wanikani collaborating with Satori Reader. BoomPro is a sort of a case study, like tangentially, BoomPro and Wanikani integration is a great idea. It expands on that. The downside is that they both also still operate on the same like schedule type. So it's not like profoundly introducing something else. The fundamental is that everything's still being reduced to mere exposure. Now, that's what people will focus on. I'm not saying BoomPro's developer wanted this, because BoomPro, they wrote grammar, they wrote really wonderful sentences, hired actors. The thing is, your audience will simply ascribe that to the established thing that they're most comfortable with, which is SRS. Do you know what SRS is? Well, most people say like, oh, it's a technical way of spacing out your repetitions so that it extends how long you will eventually forget something. Well, guess what? SRS can be used to maximize something or minimize something. What minimizes something? TikTok, YouTube, algorithm, Gemini, ChatGPT. They minimize the spacing. Maximizing spacing can produce a divorce and time for other thinking, sure. Minimizing it means that you're more likely to pay attention to that than the next thing. So yes, whenever you think about, oh yeah, Wanikani, it's so hard to like pay attention when Wanikani isn't nagging at me to do my reviews. It's like, yeah, no kidding. And then it's like, oh, but I don't understand. I always get distracted by Discord, or I always get distracted by YouTube the moment I see it. It's like, because they have minimum spacing. The spacing between each time you get a hit from YouTube and doom scrolling, the space is smaller. It's space repetition system. YouTube is a space repetition system. It serves you new videos when things become available. In fact, its content is the basis of its content is almost inexhaustible now. It's so inexhaustible to the point where AI slop is more than 50%, like it's approaching more than 50% for AI slop. So churning the same thing is not only, dear me, I'm saying like I am pretty convinced that despite me and other, people who spend some time outside of AI slop and whatnot, I think it's questionable. It's a little bit concerning how popular these things are. I would concede that probably the more majority people don't actually care about AI slop. Like what I mean is they actually do consume AI slop. They see AI slop and they're perfectly fine with wanting to see the same thing being iterated over and over again. If regardless of how like I feel that people should be questionable about this stuff, like seeing the same stuff iterated over and over again, and the spacing between your exposure keeps narrowing and narrowing and narrowing until it consumes even language learning that relies on the same technique, right? I can't ignore obvious evidence that suggests that if you take 100 people, more than 50% of them are perfectly fine with AI slop. How do I know this? After Coco Melon, right? After Coco Melon, and that's not technically AI slop, right? When AI slop slided in Love Island with fruits. Like the most popular thing is not something produced by humans who's telling you not to rely on space repetition to generate your upper level cognitive function, because you need time to process, right? Heard this before. If you're blitzing through something, it's like, oh, I see that, I see that, I see that. Oh, I saw that before. Oh no, I saw that 100 times. Now I memorized it. It's like, that's great. Let's go memorize some more things by seeing it 100 times and 1,000 times over. Meanwhile, all I can see is 5 hours in, someone doom scrolled and they memorized the whole thing, but they memorized the same iteration of the same thing 5,000 times over. It's that time efficient. It's time efficient per exposure. Is it time efficient for comprehension, upper level thinking? No, it's absolutely uncontested. It is if someone has a compelling argument to me that they say memorizing 10,000 things over and over again is more efficient than developing comprehension that ties any of those things together, so that you don't have to constantly memorize and rememorizing those 10,000 things, I would love to hear it. Right? Humans understand patterns, associations, like larger deduction, correlations, extrapolation, deduction, right? All of those things exist in a higher tier. So why do they exist in a higher tier? It takes time. You need to process the information. You need to sit down, reflect, retrospection, develop experience. No, if you're constantly inputting with smaller and smaller spacing, you will have less and less time to process it. So here we are speaking about this, and I could argue that someone can totally slam my face in and memorize 3,000 Hanzi right off the bat, and they would memorize those things. And meanwhile, I'm at like 500 Hanzi, but I would have stories and manga examples or usage examples of those 500 Hanzi. They would have meaning to me by the time I get to 500. That other person can say, oh yeah, but I know this and this and this. I also memorized all 500 of your Hanzi. And it's like, the 3,000 is greater than 500. It's like, yeah, but that's all you do. All you had was memory and recognition. You didn't even have time to process or think about what you can do with them, or what you're going to do with them, or even do them in response. What are you going to do next? Memorize an entire text by memorizing what's in it? Or are you going to read the text out of the interest of curiosity and apply the meaningfulness of the time you spent with the characters you had time to process? Because if you don't, you're doom scrolling. Speeding through SRS like a 5-second drill, like a minimum 5-second drill, to me, it is very difficult to see the difference between flicking through doom scrolling every 5 to 10 seconds. The shortage amount of encoding that you do in doom scrolling is very much reflected in the people who think speeding through their reviews in SRS, the faster they get through without creating novel instances and knowing more detail and encouraging themselves to keep expanding, is the same as doom scrolling. You might as well just go on YouTube and watch the same, like make a whole playlist of 100 of your favorite videos and play it every single day for the rest of your life, because you're gonna forget it if you stop watching it. The thing you're relying on is you're memorizing the experience. You're not developing new reasons to remember it or use it. Like for example, my experience with Chinese is tied to my Japanese. It's not simply Chinese on the one hand and Japanese on the other hand. They're not memorization tools. Like, I don't memorize them in separate places. They're one and the same. Like, that's how you create cognitive comprehension. You bring it with you. Like, I literally got told this by several people when I asked them, so when you watch something and when you read something, what goes on in your head? And they would describe, it's like, well, it's exactly what I read. And I'm like, but what if you don't understand what you have read? And it's like, well, it's literally what I read. Like, I see what I literally read. And my first thought is, so you don't ever have questions, like imagination, like comprehending what they're going to do, being excited about what you might think is going to happen, or them thinking back to, oh, this is why this happened. Like, you don't have those conversations. And I would say more than 50% of the people I met, they literally say, if it's not literally there, I either don't remember it or it's not literally there. So no upper level comprehension at all. Or at least no indicator. Like, when someone, and that goes back to the Boom Pro rant that I had earlier today, where is this going to be on the test, is what Beth wrote. Like, if you literally are not shown the problem, you can't solve the problem. Right? Memorization and recognition without comprehension. If the literal problem I'm demonstrating is not literally on the exam, they would not be able to solve the problem. Like, there's no conceptual understanding of the problem they saw over and over again, because they can't comprehend the connection and the association, the deduction and the extrapolation between the information, the conceptual information that they have, in order to solve a related problem or even a novel problem. There's no critical thinking involved. So when you're doom scrolling every 10 seconds, you're substituting doom scrolling for 10 seconds and telling yourself you're learning something by doom scrolling in SRS every 10 seconds, whether you get it wrong or right in 10-second intervals. Actually, the person that said this multiple times, two or three separate people, they say they spend 5 seconds looking at an SRS card. Like, 5 seconds or less. If 5 seconds eclipse, they just simply swipe, look at the answer, swipe again, and hope that it just comes back. Like, that is the fundamentals. Now, it's not a bad or a good thing, right? It's only bad when it no longer services you. So if I'm making an argument and someone comes to me and is like, how do you solve problems if you don't know what the problems are going to be in the future? Now it's a bad thing. And that's my narrative. So when I ask them, okay, well, you solved this problem, right? How is this problem related to possible problems in the future? Can you imagine questions that you still want to ask yourself if it's not there? Like the stuff you know now, how is it going to be a problem later? Can you imagine scenarios where there's a short-sightedness with the way you're starting to do things? Like if you think that spending 5 seconds thinking about why you got something wrong, you don't even think about that, because most people, what they do on SRS is they see that they got it wrong and they move on. They don't sit there and think, okay, so I thought about this and I thought about this. Okay, let's write that down. And then the next time you get another wrong, it's like, wait a minute, why does this feel familiar? It feels like I got this in the same way wrong this way. You write that down and you start developing patterns, right? You learn that, oh, you know what? A third of the time, they're all related. They all have pronouns. They all have proper nouns listed together. Or, oh man, all of these deal with fruits. That is critical thinking skills, right? You're starting to develop patterns and recognition. But you can't do that if you think that, oh yeah, this is the best way to learn. I just trust the system and I don't think about anything. And then you let it go. And I'm like, I'm not surprised that whenever you try to challenge me, right? Like when someone comes up and say, oh yeah, this is how it works. Are you sure that's how it works? Did you sit down, reflect, and tell me that's how it works? Explain to me, what has SRS taught you? Because most of the time, someone will tell me, like, oh, you know, all these leeches, these are the ones that I'm bad at. I'm like, okay, explain. Explain why they are leeches and explain why you are bad at them. Like, well, I'm bad at them because I got them wrong. I'm like, that doesn't explain anything. You spend that does explain something that a 5-second thing would do, right? Like, it is easy to explain something when you only spend 5 seconds thinking about it. Like, you look at data, it's like, oh, you look at all the data that you collected. Yeah, but you didn't analyze any of that data. Like a fitness tracker, right? If you use a fitness tracker, it tracks everything, and then you see what it can tell you, and then you just move on. It's like, oh yeah, the fitness tracker is just telling me my time's going lower, so that's good, and that's good, right? That's useful when it meets your needs. So it's good when it meets your needs. And then later down the road, you're like, I don't have my fitness tracker and I don't want to use my fitness tracker anymore. How can I be satisfied with the next thing I do? Well, you need to understand what the fitness tracker did for you. What did it tell you? How did it modulate or moderate the way you do things? How did it affect and how do you interpret afterwards? What are the patterns that associate between the two? None of that requires thinking if you don't think about it, right? So whenever someone asks me, I have a problem, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to explain the problem to me so that I can actually suggest something. Like, well, I don't know. It's kind of like I keep getting stuck on the same like 10 words, and I'm like, okay, can you explain anything about those 10 words? It's like, well, it's just 10 words. I'm like, do you even remember what the 10 words you got wrong? And they're like, well, it's like this thing. I'm like, what thing? Like, you have to write it out. You actually have to tell me what the 10 thing is. Maybe I can see a pattern or something. And it's nebulous. Because the things you get wrong, you don't even keep track of anymore. You literally don't keep track of the things you get wrong. Like, and I'm not describing everyone. I think the minority look at the errors that they make, try to figure out what else they can do. Like, the minority use critical thinking skills and problem solving skills to encourage themselves to level up, integrate more tools, and so on. I genuinely do say it's probably safe to assume that the majority do not do that. They rely on repetition, and repetition is king, because nearly most aspects who are chronically online rely on repetition for most things. Like, how do you remember what happened in a movie? Watch it multiple times. And when I've ever asked, like, so what do you like about the movie? It's like, well, I watched it. Okay. Can you explain any particular thing that you find memorable? I can't remember all the details, but if I watch it again, I'll know all the details. I'm like, okay, that's memorization and recognition. If the thing is not there, you can no longer construct or apply what you're going to say. A thought rarely ever comes up while you're engaged in something, right? Like solving a puzzle. When they solve the puzzle, they no longer remember the solution. It's crazy. Like what? And then you start asking, why do you have trouble remembering something that was just explained to you like 5 minutes ago? It's not because you have short attention span, in my opinion. Like, what I mean is, it's not the same as saying inherently having short attention span versus being trained to be efficient and practiced in only paying attention for a specific amount of time, right? Those two things are very difficult right now. It's hard to know. There are some double-blind studies and like longitudinal studies that are trying to hope to get to the bottom, or maybe try to clarify some of these things. Is it permanent? I hope in my mind that it is temporary, as in the reason why people only pay attention and can only consume and remember a specific amount of details and then iterate and output it after the initial exposure is because there isn't enough time to do that. And they habitually limited their time so much so that they've become more efficient, but also for that limited amount of time. So the amount of things people may remember in a 5-second window might have gone up per second. However, the window is so small that it still pales in comparison to someone who spends 3 minutes looking at something. Because despite the less observant person who's like spend 3 minutes, they are statistically probably going to be likely more able to observe more things about any particular thing versus the swath of volume that someone has to. Some people may argue, okay, well, if that person spends 3 minutes learning one word, and this person spent 3 minutes learning 60 words, doesn't that mean the person who's learning 60 words have learned more things? Well, they have certainly learned more words. Right? No contest. No contest. Use objectivity. Use internet lingo. Use NetSpeak. 60 is greater than 5. Or 1 even. 60 is greater than 1. Right? That person has 3 minutes of attachment and observation with one word. Let's expand it even further. Let's take someone who makes an argument SRS is the most efficient way to learn kanji. All right, well, you learn 20 kanji in 1 year. Fair enough, right? Like, that's 20 kanji's like speed run thing. 2,000 kanji in a year. Okay, so now you have the disproportionate amount of time based on efficiency that you are exposed to that 2,000 kanji, however much time you have. Even in the context of one's own health, it is a very specific amount of time that is very small because you're being efficient. Now you have someone else who may have learned 500 kanji using in that same amount of time, and we equivocate the time, but they did 500 kanji. And we're talking about the same person cloned together. So we're not comparing two people who have different specialized backgrounds. We're talking about the same theoretical person spreading their time between 2,000 kanji and spreading their time between 500 kanji across the same amount of time. The odds are the person who has split the time in the 500 kanji had more time to potentially create emergent and comprehensible inputs and output than the 2,000 one. Now, you can argue that the person who saw the 2,000 kanji know more kanji than his clone who learned 500 kanji. Does the comprehension of the 2,000 kanji exceed the comprehension of the 500 kanji? That, however debatable, I would even say it's still debatable. The 500, no contest for me personally. The person who has spent their time with 500 kanji versus their clone with 2,000 kanji, they will know more kanji, but that other person will likely know more details about the 500 that they currently have. So it's a trade-off, right? It's one of those trade-offs. Not good or bad, awareness. If you're spending 5 seconds on all your mistakes, then you learn 5 seconds worth of mistake reflection. If it took you 5 seconds to guess and then it takes you a split second to brush over a mistake, then that's all the mistake benefit, and like that's all the learning you get from a mistake. So don't be surprised when I ask you, can you explain the nature of your mistake to me? And they're like, oh, I entered this and it's actually this. That explains nothing. That simply explains you answer something and it doesn't match it up with the thing that the system tells you. That is what's happening right now. So when I ask someone, why do you think this YouTube video is questionable? Because the YouTube video said it's wrong. That's what I get anyways from like even mid-20s people, like the older part of Gen Z. I get that. I even get that type of comment, like, why do you think this is wrong? Because people believe it. It's like, what type of people? YouTube. Like, do you have an opinion of your own? Do you discuss the things and topics that they mentioned? Did you gather and correlate an overall profile of all the opinions? Did you get a second opinion? Do you even get a third opinion? And usually the person would argue back and say, no, I got a statistic. It says 2.4% of people disagrees with this and 51% of people agree with this. Okay, thanks for the statistics. So what does that mean to you? Do you ever feel like, despite the majority agreeing on some sort of statistic, what does that mean? Like, how do they collect the statistics? Did anything cross your mind other than the moment you saw a number is bigger, it somehow proves a point? Right? That's where we are right now in terms of SRS and language learning, right? This was an uphill battle the first year when I was using Duolingo. The first thing someone says is like, oh, don't worry about this dumb jerk who thinks he's high and mighty and whatnot, and say like, just let him spend his 1,000 hours on Duolingo when you can do the same amount, learn the same amount of kanji in like a fraction of the time by pulling out a dictionary and sentence mining on your favorite manga. And I'm like, that's good for you. That's the metric that you decided to pick, right? And it's a shame that your mind is so narrow-minded that you think that the metric of how many kanji you can produce is a measure of your competence with the kanji. my personal rebuttal. It's still there. By the way, if you really want to see these comments, they're still there. At least to my knowledge, the person who originally posts these things and I respond to them, they haven't deleted this video comment. It's a fun scavenger hunt because I have like thousands of videos that are all 8 to 10, like they're like 4+ hours long. I don't know how people search for video comments, but there is a scavenger. There's some fun little nuggets there and there, here and there from the first year where someone would choose a metric that deliberately is not what I'm aiming for or what I find as rewarding, project that onto me, and then use their argument by not even hearing what I value. So if you're saying you want to pump that kanji number, yeah. Actually, do one better. Just have a table of all the kanji and just stare at all the kanji. You'll probably know more kanji or seen more kanji than me. Isn't that fair? Objective is objective. What is the fastest way? Don't even bother with Genki. Don't even bother with sentence mining. Just simply stare at a table of kanji. You will definitely be exposed to more kanji than I have, no matter what. Right? So, do not, it's a testament to how objective, efficiency, narrow-mindedness can produce a low level of competence and comprehension. Because you don't spend any time thinking about it. You've min-maxed your way outside of needing to comprehend anything. When you go running, like for example, when I go running for the 1465th consecutive time in a row per day, once per day, I still take time to look around and observe and do things and be in the moment. I don't simply say, oh, this is what I do, and then you run and you come back saying, I don't even remember what my run was like. Right? That's human condition. So, to send it off with a very particular statement, comprehension is not how fast you do something solely. Okay? I have to unfortunately clear the space of that. The faster you try to encode something, the faster you input something, the less you comprehend. Comprehension is proportional to the amount of time and the effort you place into noticing things and doing things of quality, not of quantity. So you can learn most definitely more kanji than someone. That doesn't mean your attention that you're dividing against your clone, right? That doesn't mean that the higher volume of kanji lead to a higher level of comprehension than the same amount of time that your clone did with a smaller number of kanji. There's it's kind of like a bell curve. I'm not saying you don't hit a lower limit. Like if you only learned one kanji, you take the extremes, right? If you compare one kanji to 2,000, yeah, the 2,000 wins out. Are you telling me that your clone is going to spend the same amount of time thinking about one kanji versus 2,000 kanji? We have to shrink it to a bell curve. If you're comparing it to 1,000 versus 500, there is a time where the less is more, right? You heard this before. Less is more and more is less. Quantity over quality versus quality over quantity. That argument comes into play. And right now, it's quantity over quality. And quantity over quality is rarely a sufficient method to create comprehension. You slow down when you seek quality. You speed up when you seek quantity. When someone starts from a beginner and advances to an intermediate and intermediate into an advanced, quality goes up, quantity goes down. Higher level thinking settles in, lower level thinking settles out, because you no longer you can't retrieve more value from it. So, riddle me this. When someone asks me how they're going to learn their next stage, and the next stage, I ask this question really often. When someone says, oh, you're done with this, what do you do next? What are you looking forward to doing next? Like, now that interviews are out of the way, like you have accomplished that, have you planned your next thing? What are you going to do with this new experience? And usually the person that deals with learning a language, they would say, oh, I'm going to reduce the next steps to the same steps that I've done in the previous step. So how are you going to learn how to make sentences? Reduce the sentences to Anki, to SRS. Okay? So then how are you going to play video games? Oh, I'm going to take the video games and reduce it to SRS, into a deck. Okay? Is there anything else? It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take these things and I'm going to reduce it into SRS, a deck. And my first thought is, I would love to hear what happens in another year or two. I really genuinely want to know. I haven't gotten that far yet. So, I haven't known anyone so far long enough in which the way they study and the way they learn doesn't change over time. And again, change can go both ways. It can change to reduce competence in comprehension, or it can change to increase competence, or change not at all. So, when you go from high school to college, there are plenty of people who stick to their high school methods and manage to get a degree in college. There are also people who completely radically, changed their thing and got worse. And then there are usually the case where most people become more enlightened, largely because the environment challenged them to do so, right? The projects get longer, careers and thesis and certain tasks get longer. They get quote unquote harder, require more commitments and accountability. If you think your commitment to remembering a word is going to get lower and lower and smaller and smaller and shorter, it is reflected in your comprehension. You spend speaking, for example, if you spend 10 seconds thinking about what you're going to say because you say it all the time, say, hello, how are you? That's why it's called small talk and pleasantries. Then I ask you a question. It's like, what's the highlight of your day? And they're like, and then the threshold is they're going to provide a 5-second response like, oh, uneventful. That didn't answer my question. They're picking their practice responses that are most convenient and low effort because it's habit forming. Not saying that they don't care about me or I should be offended. I didn't imply that I was being offended. I'm trying to explain their motivation, right? They're going to pick something that they've rehearsed very quickly so that they don't have to think about it. It is the human response. So, like, how are you? Hello. That's 1,000th, the 1 millionth time you said, hello, how are you? What is the easiest way to learn how to colloquially speak a language? Hello, how are you? I'm doing great. O genki desu ka? Right? And then you can stick with that if you want. It only becomes a problem when someone comes back and say, I wish I could express myself better. And I'm not even talking about Japanese or Chinese. I'm talking about English. Like when someone says, oh, it's complicated. Try me. Are you so used to saying complicated that it's so easy to say it's complicated, and it only tells me that you have no comprehension of what's complicated. Like, that's me genuinely wanting to elevate the person's complication because it's probably very important. It's a shame that they're unable to have someone who would listen to them, who would encourage them to expound upon it, because high level thinking requires a time investment. And oftentimes I feel like it's a reflex. It's a self-deprecating reflex. Like, oh, it's complicated. I don't want to bother you with my burden. And all at the same time, I think about it as like, that must suck. In my opinion, like, it's a shame that they don't feel like whatever their complication is or whatever they want to share, they also find a reason to not want to talk about it or find reward or value in it. Like, I actually think it's a privilege to be able to be trusted and discussing things, right? And it helps when people practice how to explain things. Well, this is all tied in. So now that is my digression for the day, right? I think language learning has offered me looking at the microcosms of language learning, at least modern apps and design, has really opened the door for a narrative that is built and very integral to the lack of practice of meaningful introspection, retrospection, deduction, critical thinking skills. Like, you don't have to memorize an entire movie or recite verbatim what you did in class today to develop higher cognitive thinking and reward. When I ask someone, how was your day? Did anything happen that stuck out? Being able to take that one moment and spend the time talking about that one moment develops a higher cognition than trying to spread your entire memory out to tell me exactly what you did in the entire day. Like, oh, I got up, washed my hair, I think I brushed my teeth like for 2 minutes, then I got down, laced my shoes, then I walked outside, it was slightly drizzling, the humidity. Yeah, that's possible for someone who constantly is trying to memorize everything. I want to inculcate that if you just want to spend 5 minutes talking about how you hate brushing your teeth in the morning, that creates a level of higher cognition. Like, you're thinking about it. You're saying, oh, it's that particular toothbrush. Maybe I should consider getting a new toothbrush or something. I wonder where I should start. Now I think it might be the bristles and not quite. I don't really like the handle either. Now you're thinking about like the details, right? Occasionally slowing down for the details. Learning is like that, in my opinion, especially language learning. Someone keeps repeating the same mistake. Surprise, surprise. Why do they keep repeating the same mistake? Because they don't think it's a problem. They think it can be ironed out by like a 5-second swipe of magical repetition. Like, that's like, if it does, good for you. Like, what I mean is, I hope it is really that simple. Honestly, I don't think I've done too many things in my life where a 5-second repeat or 10-second repeat or a day repeat somehow magically solves my mistakes. Sitting, stooping, thinking through things solves those mistakes. It's tiresome. It's exhausting. Eventually, when you do it over a lifetime, there are fewer and fewer mistakes as you're going, and you solve more and more complicated problems as you're going. It's an investment forward for the rest of your lifetime. And I don't have much time. I'm in the midpoint of my life. Ideally speaking, I would be considered middle-aged. when you're 14 or to 18 years old, and you're thinking your future is not an investment in understanding how to appreciate and learn skills and stuff that will serve you for a lifetime. That's perfectly all right. Stick to your fundamentals, right? Fundamentals, you heard in artists before, fundamentals is key. It's king in the beginning, right? Like fundamentals, you use it all the time. It's important to use memorization and recognition to get your fundamentals down. When you stick to the fundamentals and only the fundamentals, then there are no more higher cognition. You can get very good at your fundamentals. Cue the anime character that basically focused on only the fundamentals and became emergent from the fundamentals. It can happen. It definitely can. If you look at those characters, they also are deficient in higher cognition or anything that they don't practice, which is like, I don't know, someone who can mechanically speak at a very high level but have no emotional intelligence, right? You sacrifice things. So pros and cons. And to wrap this all up, it's not a problem if you're perfectly happy. So I'm not here to try to dictate what's the best way to live. I'm typically one who likes to talk about these things to offer an alternative. Understand that doing something slower doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worse or less rewarding. That is a cognitive dissonance that is a consequence of the internet hustle culture. Like when you see someone learning 2,000 kanji in a year and you're looking at your 400 kanji now, there's an equalizer. You have to equalize the many things that you are actually doing with your time. Accountability for time used is tougher. It's one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the toughest human conditions. Accountability for what you spend your time with, right? Like, you have to normalize the time, and recording all of these things can help you answer those questions if you actually take the time to analyze them. Not look at it and say, oh, the system is telling me this. Because if you look at your sleep schedule and your system is saying, oh, you have less sleep over time, it doesn't explain why you have less sleep over time. It's a statistic, right? And maybe in the future they might, right? I'm not saying now. We're talking about specifically now how people use data. Perhaps in an AI dominant learning world, there's going to be someone who's willing to sacrifice all of their agency and then have all the track, and maybe AI will be able to tell you, oh, hey, we noticed that you have been drinking a lot of liquids before you have an increase in intake of your liquids right before you go to bed in the last 6 months compared to the months before. That could be the result of interrupting your sleep schedule, perhaps, right? So fingers crossed. Not a doom world, I suppose. The stuff that we're heading to, maybe technology can be a band-aid. The disclaimer here is I'm specifically talking to individuals who think it's a bad thing, like think it's a problem, and it is tied to the way they learn and critically solve things, like critically think. If you're perfectly happy with grinding out 2,000 kanji or 4,000 hanzi with a 5-second delay on, and then you're achieving your goals, then I'm not, no problem here. It becomes my problem when you go to other people, especially me, and project your problem onto me. Like when someone comes here and say, man, it took you 1.5 years to go over 2 kanji. I could have done it in a year. Here's what you did wrong. Project. Like, you wasted half a year because if you didn't do it the way I did it, that's why you spent half a year not doing what I did. And you spent half a year more, like a lot more, and wasted half a year doing it the way you did it. That's projection. I don't know who's more upset. Are you like that's when it becomes the problem of other people. When you become upset without understanding that other people are not upset. Right? Now, if you find someone who's upset like you are, feel free. Go wild. Misery deserves company, right? It's like, I know, I screwed up too. That's good times. The feeling I get a lot of times is there's always going to be someone, who have came up with a faster method about their goals. And then they're projecting onto me because they were angry that they discovered this really late or something like that. And then they're telling me and dictating to me that it's going to happen to me without ever asking me if I have the same goals they do. So you want to speedrun kanji? I didn't. And I did it in a year and a half. And some other people will say, man, year and a half, you must have sped run kanji. And I'm like, I don't know. Did I? I can explain to you what I did, and then you can determine if I speed run it. Right? That's kind of the idea. Anyways, more on that in the future. This is more of a self-reflection situation. I imagine I will be answering these questions far more in the future. I'm preparing and iterating on my narrative. I'm also refining how I'm identifying things. Like, what is considered space rep? What is tied to short attention span? What is tied to encoding? All of the above. And then how does that tie in with critical thinking and problem solving skills, right? And the identifier of what it's like, if someone asks me how to explain what it's like when you became an intermediate learner in the language, in the target language, I'm trying to describe that now because I'm no longer engaging with the language in the same way I have engaged with it the first 2 years. It is beyond that now. Like, there are very few things that I find that are incentive by heavily relying on the way I used to learn. Now, I'm not saying I stopped doing that. I would be a hypocrite if I said I stopped doing that. I do it. That is to practice and maintain it, because memory and recognition requires maintenance. So I still practice my foundations. They're more and more spread out, like the way space repetition is intended. And then larger and larger amount of my time is focused on the reward of deductive, critical thinking stuff. I'm hitting my stride now. Now the question is, am I going to get to mastery or nuance? The answer as a teaser is probably going to be no, because I don't want to invest my entire life for the mastery of something. So we're going to hit like N2 or something like that, and like HSK 6, and then we're going on to do other tasks. We're not going to master anything. I have no aspirations to master anything. It is through the practice and application of things that I can specialize the skills that I have cultivated. So it is the culmination, the holistic interaction of all the skills that I have that produces my unique mastery, not any particular skill. So that's a little bit of a teaser, because that's at the end of 2027 is probably when we stop doing this stuff. Like, I stop recording this stuff and talk about this stuff. Like, what happens after intermediate learning? I move back to being a beginner. So that means I pick a new skill, a new thing, and we do it again. Only this time I take all of the experience I had from Chinese and Japanese and move it forward. My specialization is learning and like various critical thinking problem solving skills, not the mastery of Chinese or Japanese, right? So not any of that. And I hope to write something about it one day. In my mid 40s, I release something one day. All right, folks, that's a wrap for HanziHero today. I really did intended to rest, but every time someone stops by and have a conversation with me, it is great inspiration to talk about a monologue a bit, have an internal discussion, and for posterity's sake, all of this stuff is a setup for what I anticipate is a future technology thing. So more on that in another 2 or 3 years, I would say. If we're lucky, I might get to share what I was planning on since over the 3 years now. 3 years ago that I set in motion. So maybe another 2 years, I'll get to reveal what I had planned 5 years ago. And then maybe some stuff that I planned 10 years ago might come to fruition. So we'll see. I'm not going to talk about things that have yet to mature and bear fruit. So for now, we're thinking more like yearly things at most. So I'm thinking and sharing some of the stuff to the end of 2027. And then most of the stuff that we typically talk about is the month-to-month stuff. I haven't really thought about half-year projects. Not really. Except for the Persona Legacy project. So starting next month, we're going to start working on a Persona Legacy project, which will likely take half a year. So we'll have a yearly project, half a year project, and if we're really feeling ambitious, sprinkle in a bit of a monthly project, right? Very slow, disciplined, staggered way. Until next time, you are more than free to follow along. Pick up HanziHero for yourself. Give it a go. You're always welcome to come on by. Yap. Slow down. Yap. Talk about things. Exchange ideas. I am so privileged. I feel incredibly privileged in the presence of someone who is willing to discuss what's important to them, exchange ideas about what they're working on, because that is a privilege. Getting time from someone else is a great privilege. You have no control over it. Like when someone asks you and share their thoughts and willing to communicate their complications and whatnot, that is a privilege. It's the privilege of human contact, human conversation. So priority number one, right? So you're more than welcome to hopefully share that. Until next time, 大家下次见，感谢观看. Thanks for watching and listening, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.